fantastic note with Sally Magee from Magee Leadership Solutions, who is here to talk to us about building peak performance teams. Sally, good morning, and thank you so much for being here and for sharing this information with us. I am going to give you all a little bit of information about Sally, but before I do, I am going to go over some very, very quick housekeeping. Um, Please remember to open the chat room if you do not already have it open. We will be engaging in the chat room, so make sure that you know where that is. If yours is not open, there is a little button in the bottom right corner of your screen that says chat. It's a little bubble, thought bubble. If you open that, you'll be able to engage with our team who is monitoring the chat box. If you have any questions for Sally, please use the Q&A box, which should also be open on the right side of your screen. We will be monitoring that chat room area to make sure that we are answering any questions that you have during this presentation, and there will also be a time for Q&A at the end. Um, at the end of this event, if you use the red circle with the white X to leave this event, there will be an evaluation. Please, please, please take a moment to complete that evaluation. We like to hear from you, hear what we can do better in 2022, and make sure that you got what you came to get from this event. I think that is all of my housekeeping. So I am going to introduce Sally now. Sally Magee is the president of Magee Leadership Solutions and has over 20 years of experience in project management, engineering and construction, and people development. She has a passion for helping teams improve their effectiveness and helping leaders grow and develop to meet their potential. She excels at individual coaching as well as team building and organizational development with teams of all sizes, from small businesses to large corporations to multi-partner joint venture teams. Magee Leadership Solutions is a certified DBE in 6 states and is based in Southern California. So for those of you who understand the time difference, it is very early in Southern California, and we are so happy that Sally is up with the birds to give us this information. Sally has a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering and is also a licensed professional engineer in Virginia. She is a Gallup certified strengths coach, certified Myers-Briggs type indicator practitioner, master facilitator, and has a coaching certificate from the Association for Talent Development. I am going to yield Sally the floor, and we'll check back in at the end with some updates for 2022. Sally, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Just a quick sound check. Kiana or Jessica, just give me a thumbs up. You can hear me. Perfect. All right. Well, I am up with the birds, but the good news, you can see the light in back of me here in my office says when we signed on earlier, it was still dark out. So it is 7 o'clock Pacific time, but at least the lights, the sun has come up here this morning. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides here with you guys. So if you bear with me, I'm going to start the PowerPoint, and again, just a quick thumbs up if you can see the cover slide here. Thank you, Kiana. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for signing in and for participating in today's session, and thank you to GDOT and the DBE program for giving me the opportunity to present to you guys today. The topic of our conversation today is about building peak performance teams. And here's the real key here is there is no magic wand. It is hard. It takes hard work and commitment. And what we're going to walk through is those aspects of how do you do it? How do you build that peak performance team? What are the key aspects of developing a team that's peak performance? So I wanted to just kind of add on a little bit to the introduction and bio that Kiana read for me real quickly. Just to share a little bit of my experience, I do, most of the work that I do is in a partnering type of environment. And so it's with owners and contractors as big projects are getting underway. I do support GDOT and the MMIP on a number of the large projects that as part of the MMIP program, P3s and design builds. And I just gave a sampling of some of the other examples, projects that I'm the partnering facilitator for. As you can see, mostly in the hundreds of millions or $1 billion, a lot of P3 and lump sum design build types of projects. So with that said, as just a quick intro, here's what we're going to talk about today. What does it take to build that peak performance team? And what does that really mean of peak performance? I'm going to walk through 6 key aspects of building that peak performance team. We're going to talk about leadership alignment and commitment, and what does that mean and how do you do it. The second aspect is defining what success looks like. The third is around clarifying roles and responsibilities. Number 4 is recognizing and leveraging the strengths of each individual. Number 5 is establishing that culture where continuous improvement is encouraged, because you always want to constantly be raising the bar on performance of your team. And last but not least, and perhaps the most important, is to have that foundation of trust. And that's part of your organizational culture, but having trust as the foundation of developing your team, you have to give it to receive it, is the key there. And the bottom line, there is no magic wand. You can't just say, take your magic wand and create this peak performance team overnight. It takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes really hard work. So, excuse me, let's go ahead and take a look at what happens when you form a team. And your team could be, again, one of those, maybe it's a multi-partnered joint venture that's executing a project. Perhaps it's a small business that's just getting off the ground. But teams or organizations go through phases as they start to develop. And I want to share with you what those phases look like. Just real briefly, I think most people have heard of this. It's called the Tuckman's model. I mean, it's around these phases that teams go through as they start to develop. The first is forming. So the key here is forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. In some cases, organizations or teams will have an end date or an adjourning phase. The forming is where people are just getting to know each other, developing those personal relationships, starting to establish some ground rules of how you're going to work together. Storming is the tough part, where people start to resist control, maybe show a little hostility. There's maybe some conflict going on. In particular, when you've got multiple organizations that are forming together for the purpose of delivering a project, sometimes organizations or teams like that will go through this storming phase as you're trying to figure out how one company or organization does business. Work processes, who's in which roles, for example. So that storming piece can be really tricky. And in order to get to a high performance or a peak performance team, you want to get through that storming phase as quickly as possible. Norming is where people start to help each other out. They start to realize, hey, if I recognize this person's point of view and can help the person, then we're just going to do even better. And then we go to performing, where there's that open and trusting atmosphere. You're going to hear that word trust throughout our session today, where hierarchy is of little importance. People are helping each other out. They're giving each other those high fives. That's where peak performance starts to come in. And then if you're a project team, there is typically an adjourning phase where the job or the project comes to an end. And that's where you're celebrating your accomplishments and those contributions. If you're a small business, you probably won't have an adjourning phase. So you want to be able to get to that norming and performing and stay up at that high performance level as the company matures and grows. And the key here in terms of team development is that these phases, if I flip to this slide here, you go through a performance dip through the storming phase. If we look at performance over time, that's what this chart is showing us. The forming people are acting on, it's like the honeymoon phase, right? Everything is great, and then you figure out, oh wait, how do we do things together? How do we work together? What work processes? What is this culture like? So you go through that storming and then come out of norming and into performing. And like I said, your key here is to try to figure out how to get through that storming phase as quickly as possible so you can get to norming and performing. So I want to pause here and ask you guys a question for those that are on the screen here. What is the difference? And if you could just put it into the chat, we'll pause and I'll ask Kiana and Jessica to monitor the chat for us here. What's the difference between a team or just a group of people? So I'm going to pause and let you guys think about that. What's the difference? A team or just a random group of people? Are we having any answers come in here?
Yes, Lori Long said, oh wow, we've got it's coming fast. Here we go. Lori Long said the team works together and cares about the outcome. Robert Alderman said said team has a mission and vision to accomplish a goal together. Andrea Burnett said purpose. Um, Prashanthi Reddy said collaboration. Chris Williams said team equals common goal. Laurie Bennett said a team typically has a common goal. That seems like a common theme that's coming. Leandria Holiday said a team has a focused goal. Kyle Bruner said a team has a specific goal they are trying to accomplish, a group of people or just people together. Natasha Hooper said teams should have a common goal or focus. Himakara Bora said working together, uniform goal. Thank you, Keisha Lavelle. Sonia Simpson said team has a goal. Caroline Evans said a team requires leadership, cohesiveness, and direction. Thank you for that, Caroline.
Yes.
And Chandra Harris said a team is a group of people who work together.
Yeah, wow, awesome. Oh my God, such good comments. And everyone was totally spot on. Mission, vision, purpose, common goals. I'm going to piggyback Caroline Evans' comment here is a team requires leadership, cohesiveness, and direction. Absolutely. So we're going to talk about exactly those three aspects. A team, a high performance team has all of that. Leadership, cohesiveness, and direction. So let's start with that first piece, leadership. I didn't hear anyone else mention leadership, and unless I missed it there, Kiana, but leadership is the first aspect of really developing that peak performance team. One is around recognizing the role of the leader, and two is having a leadership team that's aligned. So a couple different aspects of leadership here when we're talking about building that peak performance team. So let's talk first about the role of the leader. The role of the leader is, as the slide says, empowering your people, leading change, inspiring your team, and creating a shared vision so that everyone can get behind what is that purpose, which many of you said, the vision, the mission, the purpose. What leadership does is sets that tone for working together, empowering, right? Establishing that culture. Your leadership team, whether you're a small business like me, I'm the only leader, I'm the only employee of my company. So aligning myself is pretty easy. But when you have a team or a company of hundreds or thousands of people, clearly you'll have a leadership team or a leadership organization, and having all of those leaders be aligned around that common purpose, the goals of the project or the company or the organization or the agency, for example. That's the key, is recognizing what the leader's role is and then establishing that alignment amongst your leadership team so that everyone is pointed in the same direction, that cohesiveness, the direction, and that starts at the top. Excuse me, several of you mentioned around vision, mission, and purpose. That's the second step. So you need to, one, have a clearly aligned group of leaders, but what are they aligned around, right? You have to have a picture of what success looks like for the team. And again, the team can be a small business, a large business, a corporation, an agency, a department, a multi-partnered type of project team. Regardless of what the team is, there has to be a definition of what success looks like. And that's how you start the conversation around building a vision or a mission statement. Every organization, regardless of the size, even a small business or a one-person business like my own, has to have a vision and a mission of to get what makes you get out of bed every day. What is your purpose? What is the team's purpose? And that starts by asking the question, what does our success look like? So having those conversations with leaders around what success looks like and having an actual definition of success is key, so that everyone in the organization or on the team or part of the team that's part of the organization understands what they're doing. What is their role in contributing to that success? So that's the key here, is having that clear definition of what success looks like, having a vision and a mission and a purpose that everyone can get behind and get excited about. That's the leader's role in the previous slide talked about empowering and inspiring your people. So your vision statement should be something that people read and can relate to and feel inspired by. So that's the key number 2, is having that clear definition of success. That's the big picture, the why. Why do we get out of bed every day to deliver this project or to work for this organization? And then we need to drill down into not just the why, but the what. So a vision statement is often combined into several aspects: the why, the what, and the how. The how is oftentimes referred to as maybe your company values. That's the how do you work together for delivering either the project or delivering the services that the company provides. So a vision or mission statement really encompasses those 3 things: the why, the what, and the how. Once you have that alignment, again, at the leadership level and articulated clearly of what success looks like, then you can drill down to the next level. And that is establishing key goals and objectives. So you start with that big picture, get everyone aligned on the purpose, and then you drill down into specific goals. Now, goals and objectives, some organizations will call them key result areas, critical success factors, for example. Just for simplicity, we're going to call them key goals. These are the things that have to go right in order to meet that definition of success. They have to go right. The key here is that your team can put a system into place that can measure and control them. They are the measurable and controllable factors that will impact success. Oftentimes I work as a partnering facilitator. As I mentioned, these are things if we're delivering a project, for example, of a new highway, a bridge, a light rail system. These are things such as safety, their schedule, meeting the project schedule, their meeting quality requirements. So these are things that are controllable by the project team: safety, quality, cost, schedule, budget, and they're also measurable. So the key here in terms of establishing goals is that they're SMART. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with the SMART goal format. They need to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. And again, you set up a structure or a system of monitoring them over time and understanding what those metrics are and those measurements, so that you know your goals are staying on track, that you're going to meet the goal. So whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual goals and objectives, the key here is to establish a system for your organization or for your team to know whether or not you're staying off track. You can also put in a system, a dashboard, for example. So you take these measurements over time, maybe from quarter to quarter as an example, and measure, are we trending in the right direction? Are we trending in the wrong direction? And then being able to make course corrections throughout the delivery of the project or the maturing of the organization or the team to make sure you're staying on track with meeting those goals. Okay, so those are kind of the foundational pieces. You have to have a clear alignment of leadership, a clear definition of what success looks like: vision, mission, purpose. and then specific goals. So that's the first three aspects of developing that peak performance team. And there's three more to go. So let's go ahead to number 4 is, and this is part of the people side of things, and this is roles and responsibilities. As leaders, I know I'm talking to a group of many of you are leaders in your organizations. We need to be sure we clarify the roles and responsibilities of every single person that's a part of your team. Every person should clearly understand what they are responsible for, what their deliverables are, what deadlines are required, who do they report to. Organizational charts are very handy for that purpose. Having those clear lines of hierarchy, understanding who your boss is, for example, who your boss's peers are, who your peers are. That's the leader's role, is to really understand and make sure your people understand what their role is. Without that clarity, there's confusion, there's frustration, there's probably duplication of work going on your team if you don't have this clarity. There's definitely gaps in work because maybe this guy thought that person was working on something and lo and behold, neither one of them are working on it, right? So you have things that are falling through the cracks, duplication of efforts. All of that leads to decreased efficiencies, frustration, confusion, and the bottom line is wasted money. Many teams exist and companies exist for profitable purposes, right? And even if you are a public agency or a department, for example, taxpayers' money, right? So is what we're talking about, is the public money. So all of that comes into play when it comes to developing a peak performance team, is you want to take away the opportunity for any of that to exist. And how do you do that? One is having an org chart, right? As I mentioned, having a clearly laid out definition of who reports to whom. 2 is having position descriptions so that people understand their roles, responsibilities. What kind of decisions are they authorized to make? Also, decision-making authorities is an important aspect of this piece of establishing roles and responsibilities. As leaders, it's also important to understand, or make sure your people understand, that they're empowered to make decisions. Does every decision need to go to the president of the company or the team leader? Or is your philosophy to delegate and empower decisions to be made at the lower levels? And that's a question for leadership. Again, your leadership alignment piece is that very first foundational piece of step number 1. What is that philosophy of delegation? I know delegation was one of the questions that came in the registration. The key to delegation is making sure your expectations are clearly articulated to the person that you're delegating to. So clear definition of what the outcome is and what the deadlines are. So those are kind of 2 key pieces of delegation: is expectations for performance, deadlines, and defining what the quality is of the task that you're delegating. So again, what is that philosophy of empowering, delegating of your organization and of the team? So peak performance teams will have those conversations up front to make sure everyone knows what their contribution is to the purpose, to the vision and the mission of the organization or the team. Okay, so that's step number 4. Please, if there's questions coming in through the chat or through the Q&A, Kiana or Jessica, just go ahead and stop me if there's any questions that come in. Otherwise, I'll pause here for a second and then go to step number 5. Okay.
Sally, we don't have any questions. If anyone has any questions for Sally, make sure you're using that Q&A box or the chat boxes if you can't see the Q&A box.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, before I flip to my next slide, I was just going to mention these are really the very basic foundational pieces: the leadership alignment, vision and mission, understanding key goals and roles and responsibilities. And that will get you only so far. That will get you to a good team, a good organization. a good project. But how do you go from being good to great? And many of you probably, maybe you've heard of the book Good to Great. It's a book by Jim Collins. It's a fantastic read. I'm going to give you several book references throughout our morning here this morning. The very quick Cliff Notes version of Good to Great is 3 steps. You get the wrong players off the bus. You get the right players on the bus, and then the right players in the right seats. Now, this is one of the hardest parts about developing a peak performance team, and it comes down to leadership, and not just leadership responsibility, but obligation. And what I mean by that is every organization or team usually has some wrong players. Maybe they're in the wrong seats, but maybe they're just wrong players in general. Maybe they're not aligned with your purpose, your vision, your direction. Maybe they're just not strong performance. Maybe they're performers. Maybe they're just not in the right roles. But the obligation of leaders is to recognize that quickly and do something about it. So the wrong players off the bus. Now, I'm a business owner. I know many of you are too, and it's hard to let someone go. But as leaders, like I said, it's not just a responsibility, it's an obligation. If you want to have a peak performance team and have an awesome turnout and meet that vision, if there's wrong players, they've got to go, and you've got to act swiftly, because everyone else on the team, on the project, in your organization, in your department, they all see it. If you see it, they see it. The longer you don't do something about it, the longer you start to lose credibility with the rest of the company or the rest of the team, because they see, the rest of the right players see you not doing anything about it. They see you not taking action. And then they think, well, if this guy can get away with it, then maybe I can get away with coming in 15 minutes late or leaving early or taking a long lunch break or some of those other ineffective behaviors, or not meeting deadlines, right? There's all kinds of reasons why you might have some wrong players on the bus. So number one, get those wrong players off the bus. And I don't mean to be flippant about it or just very, very direct, but that's what has to be done. If you want to go from good to great, you got to get those wrong players off the bus. Then right players on the bus. It can take a long time to get those right players on the bus. As many of you know, right? It comes to recruiting and training. Are they the right cultural fit for your organization? Getting those right players is also not easy, but it's step number 2 for going from good to great. Now, number 3 is making sure once you've got those right players, are they in the right seats? Are they in roles where they can succeed? Maybe you need to make some adjustments. Going back to the previous slide on your org chart, maybe they might do even better in a slightly different role. So this is where that whole aspect of continuous improvement really kicks in, is you as leaders need to be willing to make adjustments, because getting the right players in the right seats, the right players on the bus and the wrong players off the bus is not a one-time event. Your organization or your team will evolve over time. And so this is a continuous effort, is constantly evaluating your people. Do you have some wrong players? Do you have all the right players? Maybe you need more right players. But are they all in the right seats? And again, as your organization or your team evolves over time, your org chart is just a snapshot in time. It will change. So as leaders, and having that alignment of your leadership team, everyone needs to be on board with that philosophy of continuous improvement and constantly raising the bar and making sure you've got the right players in the right seats. Andrea, thanks for that shout out. I love this book too. This is an awesome, awesome book. And I just gave you, like I said, the very, very, very quick Cliff Notes version of 3 steps from good to great. Another one of my favorite books leads to aspect number 5. If anyone wants to give, raise a hand or a shout out to Clifton Strengths, I'll show you the book. I don't have a snapshot. The book looks like this, if you can see that on my screen. It used to be called Strengths Finder. You see this little book in a lot of airports, so I'm sure many people are familiar with it. They've rebranded, Gallup has rebranded it to Clifton Strengths. And this is an assessment that you can do. It's an online assessment. It takes about a half hour to do. What you get is your individualized, customized report of your strengths. And so this is aspect number 5, is understanding your strengths as leaders, understanding your team's strengths, and then leveraging them, kind of going back to having the right players in the right seats. Your Clifton Strengths results will give you, and basically your DNA, it's what the slide kind of shows, is this color-coded result from top to bottom, your strongest strengths to your weakest strengths. And they really fall into 4 categories. Excuse me. The blue ones are relationship building. The orange ones are influencing skills. The third one, the purple ones are executing strengths, and the green ones are around strategic thinking. So you have 4 buckets, but there's 34 themes. And what you get is a customized report from Mary Jaden, thank you for giving your top 5 strategic, deliberative, learner, relator, belief. Absolutely. So they have names. Understanding what these strengths are of yourself and your people gives you a framework for optimizing your organization. So now where we're going is not just being good, but being great, optimizing and enhancing that team. So you become this peak performance team. Clifton Strengths is one tool. There are many tools out there. Clifton Strengths happens to be one that over 93% of Fortune 500 companies are using Clifton Strengths as a means to improve employee engagement and boost team performance. So it's a tried and true assessment that's out there. There's many other assessments. Over 25 million people have taken it. If you don't take the assessment, there's a couple clues that you can use to do maybe some introspection, or you can have your people think about this too in terms of your own strengths. Your strengths are these things that you do so naturally you don't even think about doing them. They're so innate, ingrained in you that it's like picking up a pen and writing your name with your dominant hand. You don't think about doing it, just comes so naturally, you just do it. That's what your strengths are. They're these things that you do with ease, with excellence. They bring you energy, they bring you joy, you enjoy doing them. They're the things that you're excited about. So if you think about your to-do list every day and you look at all those things that you have to do, what are those things that really give you energy and that you're excited about doing? That's an indicator of what your strengths are. The more that you can leverage your strengths and your team's strengths, that's what's going to help you, your individuals, reach their potential and also raise that bar on performance of your team or your company or your organization. You can look at each individual's strengths. You can also look at your team's strengths. And once you get those results, you can actually plot it out on a map based on your org chart and say, maybe you have a team of executors, a lot of purple in their results. So executing are things like achiever, responsibility, arranger. If you've got a bunch of executors that are in influencing roles, then maybe you're a little misaligned. Maybe you've got people that are in not quite the right seat, right? So Clifton Strengths, again, is one of those tools that an organization can use to maximize potential and to, again, raise that bar on performance for creating that peak performance team. And last but not least is culture. Culture really is key here. So I want to talk a little bit about organizational culture, what it is, and why is it important. It's that underlying way of doing things around here, basically, is what organizational culture is. It's a set of the attitudes, the beliefs, the values, the goals. Again, going back to the way we do things, it's your work practices, your processes. The important thing here in terms of that organizational culture is that it is grown and cultivated over time. So you may have a new employee join a company that, or a team that's been in existence for a long time, and it will feel like something. your culture is a way of, it's a way that things feel around doing things. GDOT as a state agency, for example, it's the way we do things at GDOT, as an example. It's also, the key here is also understanding that it's infectious. So as new employees join the team, they will be influenced by the culture that exists of that team or that organization. Culture is born of the leadership. So it also, going back to that key aspect number one, your leadership is so key because that's what's setting the tone for the culture of your organization. So I wanted to talk a little bit also about how to influence the culture of your organization. And again, it's born of the leadership. It also represents, again, those attitudes, the goals, the values, your purpose, the vision. That's what that organizational culture is. And wanted to actually kind of shift to the having that culture of trust, which I mentioned in the beginning. So our culture, many things can describe the way an organization feels, right? The way we do things around here. Is it a high trust organization where people have each other's backs, they're pitching in, they're helping each other out? Or is it a low trust organization where maybe people don't quite trust what the other person is saying, maybe they're a little skeptical? So I wanted to introduce another book reference. It's called The Speed of Trust. If you're familiar with this one, it's by Stephen M.R. Covey, and there's a quick little snapshot of what the book actually looks like. He says it's the one thing that changes everything. The premise here, and this is not a book club, but I just wanted to give you a couple really good examples to leave you with, but that trust is not some elusive, soft quality that either you have or you don't. What the book is really about is that trust is pragmatic, it's tangible, and it's actionable. And it's an asset for your business. And here's the reasons why. In a high trust organization or team, you have accelerated growth, you have enhanced innovation, improved collaboration, stronger partnering with your owner, your co-contractors, your subcontractors, even just within your team, for example. And you have heightened loyalty in a high trust organization. And that loyalty, I wanted to just take a pause on of why loyalty is so important. It's because you want people to stay on your team, right? Why is that important? Employee retention is so key. We're in the midst of the Great Resignation. I'm sure you guys have seen those articles all through COVID, and certainly the changes in demographics and the generations that are entering the workforce. People are not generally loyal to their organization for decades like it used to be. So there is a lot of job hopping that goes on. And right now, again, we're in the midst of that Great Resignation right now. You want people to stay with your team, to stay with your company, your organization, because you invest in it. You have invested in them. You've hired them. You've trained them. You've given them access to, all kinds of your business doings, right? So you want them to stay. Having a high trust organization or team will help enhance that loyalty piece. I was going to mention a statistic that that it takes 2.5 on average, 2.5 times the salary of someone to replace them. I'm going to repeat that. 2.5 times the salary of someone to replace them, between loss of productivity, drop in morale, hiring, recruiting, training, onboarding, all of those aspects. So even a lower level or lower paid employee in your organization, if you think about replacing that person, the cost of replacing is a drain on your organization and your bottom line and your team. So you want to do what you can to have a trusting environment to heighten that loyalty so people stay. So you have retention, high retention rates. Another way of putting it here is, in low trust organizations, there's that suspicious or that distrusting kind of environment where trust, where a high trust organization gives you that confidence in each other and your teammates. High trust, the way Covey explains it is just real briefly, high trust is like a dividend on your organization. Everything happens faster. Decisions are made faster. That's why he calls it the speed of trust. Decisions are made faster. It's like a dividend or a bonus. And what does faster decisions mean? It means lower cost, right? So again, improving your bottom line. Where if you have a low trust organization, it's like a tax on your team. The cost goes up, the speed goes down. Again, you've got frustration, duplications of work, possibly gaps in work, confusion. It's like that tax that's driving everything down. So just looking at my time here, I got a couple minutes left, and I wanted to leave you with another tool for your toolkits. And that's the trust equation. So there are many aspects to trust, and maybe the previous slide where it says it's a soft, elusive quality. It's not a soft, elusive quality. You can actually define it. So I'm going to give you our last kind of aspect of our training here today, or our webinar, is the trust equation. And I'm curious if anyone, you could just do a quick chat if anyone has seen this before. More of a curiosity thing, just to know if you are familiar with the trust equation. What this can do as leaders is gives you a tool for identifying, one, how to build a high trust organization and a peak performance team, and it also can help you diagnose maybe where you're having some issues with trust and some aspects of what you can work on to increase the trust. So I'm just going to walk through each one of these real quickly. There's 4 aspects on the right side of the equation here. On the left side is trustworthiness. So it really should be the trustworthiness equation, but this is a measurement of the trustworthiness of an organization or a team. There's 3 aspects on the top: credibility plus reliability plus authenticity. So that's your numerator, divided by self-orientation. That's your denominator. I'm going to walk through each one real quickly just to give you an idea of how to measure or how to observe each one of these in your team. Because as I said, this can be used as a diagnostic tool if you maybe have some issues with trust, or it can also help you lay that foundation for developing your peak performance team if you understand how trust fits into the equation and how trust can be that foundation. So starting with number 1, credibility. So credibility is a measure of competence, its capabilities, its credentials, lots of C words here. It's a cognitive trait. So when we think about working with others on our teams, the question that we ask ourselves when it comes to the credibility of the person that you're dealing with is, do I believe what this person is telling me? Are they credible? So it's really an aspect of words and ideas. Are they credible? Do I believe what they're telling me? Do I believe they're telling me the truth? That's the credibility piece. Number 2 is reliability. This is around having a good track record. It's delivering on results. It's following through on commitments. Are they reliable? Can I lean on this person? Have they come through for me before? Do they have that good track record? Now, the question that people ask each other when it comes to reliability is, will they do what they said they're going to do? Now, this is something that is observable. It's based on your previous experiences with that other person, right? So if you start to have people not following through on commitments, not delivering on not meeting their deadlines, missing schedule milestones, for example, the reliability piece starts to be eroded. you start to not trust what the other person is saying if they're not consistently delivering on what they said they're going to do. So that's your question in terms of reliability. Do I believe do I believe that they are going to do what they said they're going to do? The third piece on the numerator is authenticity. So this can also often be exchanged for intimacy, vulnerability, or empathy. This is that kind of an emotional feeling of dealing with the other person. It takes, to be authentic or to be vulnerable, it takes a little bit of riskiness on both parties. And a little bit of emotional riskiness. It's a little bit harder to measure. But the questions that we ask ourselves when we're dealing with, you know, another person or your counterpart when it comes to authenticity is, do I feel safe sharing information with this person? What will they do with this information that I give them? Will they handle it appropriately? Do I feel safe? So it's again, it's more of, it's harder to measure. It's less observable, but it requires that a little bit of emotional riskiness on both parties to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is a good sign in a leader, is showing some of that vulnerability and authenticity. So that's the numerator. The denominator is the self-orientation piece, and this is how self-oriented am I? Am I selfish about myself, my position, my role, my company, my organization, my team? Or am I looking out for the other party? Maybe it's another department, another team. Sometimes it's in a contractor and owner type of environment. Am I willing to put the other person's hat on and see their perspective? Or is it all about me and my team and my organization? So if you are in a high self-orientation type of environment, is like, no, they don't care about us. All they care about is their own organization or their own team. Where if you're in a low self-orientation environment, people are showing that they care about the other person, that they care about the other team, that they care about the other department or the other organization. It's showing that they're concerned about the needs of others. So those are your four aspects of the trust equation. I often use this in a partnering environment because I work with a lot of engineers. I am an engineer, but the great part about this equation is you don't need an engineering degree to understand it. It's basically high school math, right? How do you increase the trustworthiness of a team? You increase the denominator, or you increase the numerator, and you've got 3 ways to doing it. Yeah, exactly, Andrea. It's a way of selfishness versus selflessness. That's the self-orientation piece, right? So how do you increase the trust? You increase the numerator or you decrease the denominator. So those are the 4 aspects of credibility, reliability, authenticity. Increase those aspects or decrease the self-orientation. And that's how we increase the overall trustworthiness of the team. Just a quick couple of wrap-up slides, and I think we'll have plenty of time here for Q&A. Again, going back to the very first step is that alignment of leadership. But leadership sets the tone for culture. Leadership is what's driving the culture of the organization. And once you establish that culture of having a peak performance team, of empowering your people to make decisions, clarifying their roles and responsibilities, and you build that culture of high performance or peak performance, that's what actually drives the performance, is your culture. So leadership sets the tone, establishes the culture, and culture is what drives the performance. So that's kind of all of the steps wrapped into one, is leadership setting the tone, establishing the culture, and that's what drives performance of creating that high performance team. Couple last slides here and we'll wrap up. I mentioned in the beginning, and the tagline of the webinar was, there's no magic wand. It's not a one-time, here's a magic wand and we're going to fix everything and everything's going to be fantastic. No. It's hard work. That's the bottom line. It takes leadership alignment and commitment that I talked about, establishing that vision of success, the purpose, the why, But the second thing is it also takes continual monitoring of the effectiveness of your team. It's not a one-time event. Like I mentioned, the org chart, it's going to be a moving, your org chart will evolve. And that takes leadership to constantly be monitoring what's working and what's not working. You can do that in a number of ways. You can hire an organizational development consultant like myself to do surveying, to do interviewing, to do diagnostics, assessments of what your culture and how the performance is of your team. But the third piece is really important here, and that's about having the willingness to make course corrections, the willingness, the openness, the ability to make those course corrections, getting those wrong people off the bus. I know it's hard, but it takes commitment, and that's that obligation of leadership, is to make those consistent course corrections over time. And then building that culture where trust is the foundation. I gave you a couple of pieces of, in the trust equation, The Speed of Trust, great book reference, but establishing that culture where trust is your foundation. And that's one of the keys to developing that peak performance team. So I gave you a number of book references. Clifton Strengths, I see a question there. Clifton Strengths is a book by Gallup. The book itself is written by Tom Rath, but it's a Gallup book. You can go to gallup.com and find a number of their books. That's what the StrengthsFinder assessment is, or gallup.com. You can actually do the assessment online, and you can find it on their website. So lastly, I want to give you this. Before we go to Q&A, I want you to think about your teams. What team are you a part of? Maybe multiple teams. Are you a business owner and you have your own company team? Are you part of a project team? I know we've got a number of people from different organizations on our webinar here today. But think about, this is ideal timing at the end of 2021, this crazy year that we've had. What action are you going to take in 2022? Turning this knowledge into action. What action are you going to take in 2022 to make a difference in your team? So I want to pause and let you guys think about that, and ask you to make a commitment after you click that red circle with the X in it, and after you sign off. I want you to take 5 minutes and write down an action that you're going to take to make a difference in your team. Do you want to be just a good team, or do you want to be a great team? And what are you going to do about it to make it a great team? I'm going to give a quick snapshot of my contact information here if you want to take a screenshot, and then I'll put the Q&A slide. This is my company is Magee Leadership Solutions. There's my website, my email, my cell phone, my LinkedIn profile. I don't do a lot of Twitter, but I do have a Twitter account. So there's my Let's Connect slide. I'll open it up to Q&A and say thank you. We've got about 10 minutes or so.
And we have some great questions coming in, Sally. Yeah, so I'm going to start with, well, you answered the question about the Clifton Strengths author. Cal Bruner said, are there ever any situations where culture determines the leadership that you get?
Are there ever, I'm reading that again, are there ever any situations where culture determines the leadership that you get? Well, it's really, it's backwards, is the way that the question is written. Your leadership is establishing the culture. So the leadership could be one person in a small business, it could be a team, but it's the set of values, behaviors, core beliefs of the leadership that really drives your culture. And again, having that shared vision of success. What's the purpose of the company or the team? Leadership are usually the group of people that establish that, establish the vision. If it's a project, for example, you would typically establish a project charter of, the why, the what, and the how of doing business and working together. So that's really established at the leadership level. I hope that answers the question. He can write a clarifying question if he needs to.
Okay, Kyle, if you If that answered your question, let us know. If not, if you have a follow-up, go ahead and drop that in the chat. While you're doing that, Caroline Evans, good morning, Caroline from Blue Cypress. So Caroline's question is about the Clifton Strengths map. She says, when you utilize that and plot the map, does it also become obvious where there are holes so you can actively look to fill them? Then she follows that up with, I think that awareness would be really helpful in moving people to the right seats on the bus as well as hiring.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, when you plot out, literally, you can create a team grid with the results. And you can plot out and see where there's overlaps and where there's gaps. That is, it's the opening of a conversation around what do we need to do as a team to either fill the gaps or to recognize where there's some overlaps. And the beauty of having everyone's results mapped on a chart is you can start to see where there's the opportunities for powerful partnerships. Not every single person in your team is going to have all 34 strengths, right? They're all ranked. So you can start to pair up people who might have complementary strengths and boost your performance that way. Gallup does not promote using Clifton Strengths as a hiring tool, because your greatest strengths are also your greatest weaknesses. And I won't say too much about that, other than if you overuse a strength, that can become a weakness. So without going into a strengths webinar, maybe that's a topic for next year. We can do something around Clifton Strengths.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the bottom line really is it's not recommended to use it as a hiring tool, but definitely a tool for optimizing performance. But yes, absolutely, that awareness is really key to understanding and positioning people into the right seats and leveraging what they already do good. Let them do more of it. That's the key. It's the beautiful thing about strengths. If people are really good at something, give them more of that to do, and they're going to love their work. They're going to get out of bed every day excited to work for you. You can give them things that they're already good at. That's where that excitement, the enjoy, what gives them energy. You want to have them do more of that, because they're going to just be awesome employees for you.
Yeah. So, Sally, we have a request to go back to the contact slide. I think someone, Mary Jaden, would like to
There
capture
you
that
go.
information. There you go, Mary.
Sure.
So while we have that up, if there are, these have been great questions. If you have one, a final question for Sally, go ahead and drop that in the chat. Um, just going to give you guys a few more minutes. Make sure you capture Sally's contact information. Sally, it looks like we don't have any more questions.
I see a couple of
Oh,
questions in the
there's some.
Q&A,
Oh, are there? I'm
Kiana.
sorry. Go ahead,
You want
Jessica.
to? Oh, okay, okay.
Oh,
From Andrea, she says, I feel overwhelmed with so much to do as a leader. How do I get started? And I think that's such a great question because this
that
is,
is a
um,
fantastic
and it's
question.
so honest. Thank you, Andrea, for
Yeah.
leaning into that vulnerability in this moment. So,
You are not alone. You are not
no.
alone, Andrea. You are not alone.
Absolutely. And I didn't intend to overwhelm everyone. So I think that really the key, Andrea, is taking one thing at a time. Creating and developing a peak performance team, you don't do it overnight. That's why really the tagline of our webinar is there's no magic wand. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not a one-time deal. You snap your fingers, you got your magic wand and it's all done, right? No, it takes hard work, it takes commitment, and it takes incremental, maybe even baby steps. Starting at the top with really defining your why. What is your business? I don't know if you're a business owner. For me, my why, I love working with teams. I created my tagline for my company as building peak performance teams and developing high impact leaders. That's my why. I want to see people meet their potential, exceed their potential. I want to see teams firing on all cylinders. That's my why. like I said, I'm a small business. So I think if you're a small business, really kind of honing in on what it is that your business does and why do you do it is the key to that first step. If you're a big company and a leader in a big company or a big team, maybe your company has already defined that why or what the vision or what the vision of success looks like. But really kind of honing in on your why and your personal values. There's a whole values exercise that you can go through. Many different organizational consultants can lead you through those types of exercises. I do it with some of my teams, with some of my small business teams, is understanding the personal values. What's really important to you? What are your non-negotiables, right? So yeah, you're definitely not alone. It does take time. For larger organizations, that good to great, the right players on the bus, the wrong ones off the bus, again, not a magic wand, and it takes time and it takes constant, reevaluations. So what I gave were kind of 6 aspects of developing that high performance team. They're not necessarily steps. They're not, in order, and they're not necessarily sequential. You kind of need all of them. But starting with the why, the purpose, and having that direction is really foundational. I hope that helps answer the question. What else do you have, Jessica? Any other questions came in?
I see they asked if Mary asked if you could go back to the contact
Yeah,
information slide for just a moment.
yeah, she did.
Oh, that's what you did.
That was
Sorry, I just noticed what was up there.
yeah.
And we'll get a list of the book titles that you referenced, right? From the
Yeah,
presentation.
the book titles. So one was The Speed of Trust. I'll go back to that in case anyone wants to take a snapshot of the book. It's by Stephen M. Covey, who's the son of Stephen Covey, if you might be familiar with. That's The Speed of Trust. The other one is Good to Great by Jim Collins. He's got a whole series of books, actually. Good to Great is one. Great by Choice. I'm looking at my bookshelf behind me. Great by Choice is another one, but Good to Great is really awesome. It's a fantastic read. The other one is Clifton Strengths. The book itself is called Strengths Finder 2.0. It's by Gallup. Just go to gallup.com. It's super easy to find if you want to just do the assessment. And then what you get is excuse me, what you get is a customized report of what your actual strengths are. So tons and tons of resources there on the Gallup website. It's Gallup. I'm sure you've heard of that organization, GALLUP.com. I think those were the 3 books I referenced.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at my slides here. Yeah, those were the 3.
And oh, there's one more question. Oh, nope, that's a comment. Thank you, Andrea. She says we are a small business. We have all of these pieces. It's just a matter of putting it all together. And that's the beauty of it. It's putting those pieces together. So now you have those tools to put those pieces together and to keep rearranging it when the pieces don't fit anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it doesn't happen overnight. And be happy to, Andrea, if you want to have a follow-up conversation, happy to do that also. All right, Jessica,
All
Kiana,
right.
how are we doing on questions? I know we're a couple
We
minutes over the top of the hour here.
she said thanks for sharing. Thank you for sharing and for sharing that honest moment with us. We don't have any more questions. So I think we are, oh wait, hold on, let me just make sure. Yes, okay. We are all done with questions. Sally, this has been absolutely fantastic. I have pages of notes that I know I will be using to implement in 2022 with my team here at the MMIP DBE office. So thank you so much. We hope that you will join us again in 2022 for that strengths discussion because I am already ready for that. And I hope everyone else in our webinar here is ready for that one as well. Um, As I said, this is our last workshop. Sally, you have closed us out with a bang. I hope everyone got as much information from this webinar as I did. Please make sure if you are not connected with us that you connect with our office for all of our upcoming events in 2022. We have a packed slate of events coming up. So do not miss any more valuable information like what Sally just shared. As you are leaving out, please remember red circle, white X, and give us that, fill out that evaluation that should pop up as you are closing out. Thank you so much. Everyone who attended today will get a link to the recording. And we will also send out the book list to everyone as well with a link to find those books so you can go ahead and add those to your holiday wish list or put that as a stocking stuffer into some of your coworker, family, and friends' holiday gifts. So thank you, everyone. Have an excellent day. Have a great holiday season. Please be safe. Enjoy your family and your friends and have a prosperous new year. Have a great one. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
All right, we are all clear. Sally, that was fantastic. Oh my gosh, that was so good.
It was so good. So good.
Let me stop recording.